which leads me to fact number 3. If you kill the character I love, I may not finish the series. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing 25 bookish facts about me, and it is harder than you would expect to come up with 25 facts about yourself that have to do with books. But I did it, so it's all for me. Okay, fact number 1. I did not read Harry Potter number 7 for 4 years after it came out. And I did not read the 6th book of Harry Potter more than once until after until I was a senior in high school. So it came out when I was about 14, didn't read until I was a senior, about 18, and that has to do with fact number 2. I am irrationally drawn to mentor characters. So for example, my favorite character in the Star Wars universe is Qui-Gon Jinn. He gets killed. My favorite character in the Harry Potter universe, Dumbledore. He gets killed. I was about to mention another one, and that's a huge spoiler, so I'm not going to do that yet. It was unforgivable. So, which leads me to fact number 3. If you kill the character I love, I may not finish the series. Harry Potter was popular enough, and I was curious enough that I did eventually finish the series. But there have been many books where they kill a character that I love, and I'm just like, okay, bye. That's fact number 3. Fact number 4. One of my earliest memories is when I was 5 years old. I got my own library card, and I was so excited because now I could pick out the number of books I could read. Before then, I had to share my mom's library card, and I had a total of 5 books that I could pick out for myself, and my siblings could also pick out 5 books. But when I turned 5 and got my own dang library card, and then I could check out 30 books all by myself. And boy, let me tell you, the moment I got my own library card, I filled it up. Like, that thing never dropped. Like, I would return all of my books and then immediately check out another 30 books. Like, that was a great moment in my life. The next fact, because I can no longer remember what fact we were on, my family didn't listen to a whole lot of music growing up. We listened to a ton of audiobooks. Like, I remember my dad listening to the second Star Wars movie adaptation into a book while he was making pancakes in the morning on Saturday mornings. Like, and I just remember like feeling very cozy watching him make pancakes and listening to an audiobook and just sitting there like drawing while listening to the audiobook with him. Like, that's a very cozy memory I have. And with that, my parents also read to me every night until I moved out when I was 20 years old. So I don't remember when they started this, but one night my mom would read to me, and the next night my dad would read to me. And so every other night I had an alternate story, and we picked out books to read. And this was how I got through a lot of books when I was younger. My mom read the entire Inkheart series to me. We read Percy Jackson. We did The Princess Academy. Like, I'm sure that there are thousands of other stories that I'm not remembering because we read every night. One of the biggest reasons why I love reading is because my parents always read out loud to me. The next fact, ironically enough, is that my husband was not a big reader when I married him. He had read the Harry Potter series. I'm not going to say that he's a massively big reader, and I didn't like convert him to reading or anything like that. But when I married him, he wasn't a huge reader, and that wasn't one of the things that we massively bonded over. The next fact is that I didn't buy books until I was in my 20s. I remember begging for books when the catalogs came through. I don't know if anybody else got Scholastic catalogs where you could like pour over the books and then convince your parents to buy them. Like, I remember like going through that, like it was really cool, and like circling every book and then being like, I want all of them. So I remember doing that, but I don't remember buying my own books until I was working full time after I'd moved out. And that runs into the next fact, that just about all of the books that I buy or own have been purchased secondhand from a thrift store or bought used off of Amazon or something like that. I think, I'm trying to think if I have any books that I have bought at the full retail price. This one was bought full price. My husband bought this for me because I could not find a copy of Les Miserables at any thrift store that we went to for about 2 years. I couldn't find a copy of it. And so he bought it for me from Barnes & Noble. He bought this like really beautiful, lovely golden edition of Les Miserables for me for my birthday, which was very sweet of him. Thanks, babe. One of my earliest memories, back before even the library card, so, or maybe it was about the same time as the library card, because I think I was in kindergarten or first grade. I remember learning how to read with my mom, reading this book with me, The Mouse and the Motorcycle by Beverly Cleary. There is a special place in my heart for Ralph S. Mouse. And I remember reading the words with her while she read it out loud to me. And I remember coming to the word the and being like, oh, how do I sound this out? And she was like, oh, that's a sight word, you can't sound it out. Like, and then I remember thinking, well, this is stupid. Why do you have all these letters here if they don't make any noise or any sounds? Like, this is the dumbest thing ever. But it just occurred to me, like, if you pronounce the way, like, if you were to pronounce it, like, e, the, then you can sound it out. Like the apricot is wet. I don't know. The apricot. But like the apricot is wet. Like, you could pronounce it. It doesn't have to be a sight word, depending on where you're at in the world. I don't know. It's a weird thought. Anyway. Next fact, I don't read one book at a time. I don't know if I ever have. I don't know. I've been reading for so long that I don't remember starting reading. But because my parents were reading separate nights to me, there's always 2 books that way. And then I'm very much a mood reader. So sometimes I'm in the mood for fantasy. Sometimes I'm in the mood for autobiographies. I was the weird 12-year-old checking out autobiographies of Benjamin Franklin and Caesar and like stuff like that. Oh, thank you, this dumb truck. He's just slowly making his way. Thanks, buddy. Thank you. It's like, it's whatever I'm in the mood for, and that doesn't stay consistent from day to day. So I usually end up reading multiple books at one time. A minimum, I would say, is 2 books. A maximum, it's probably 5 or 6 books at one time, because I switch back and forth between whatever audiobooks I'm listening to. So usually 2 or 3 audiobooks and then 2 or 3 actual physical books that I'm reading. I don't know. I do think with the next fact that helps a lot, because I am a wild rereader. If I like a book, I will reread it, like guaranteed. And if I love a book, I will reread it a lot. I have lost track of the amount of times that I have reread the Harry Potter books. I mean, you know, after I got over my hump of not reading the 7th one. But it's well over 30 times probably. Like, I've reread them a lot. All books that I love and want to hold dear, I re-immerse myself in the world all the time. So part of the reason that I have so many books that I'm rereading is because I'm constantly revisiting other books. So it's not that I'm rereading 5 or 6 books that I've never read before. I'd probably say like half of the books that I'm reading are a reread of some sort, whether it's through the audiobook or it's through a physical book. And then the other half are genuinely brand new books. And I do think that changes the fact a little bit. And on the overall scope of things, about half the books I read in any given year are rereads versus new books. But that's also because I find a lot of solace and escapism in books. And so when I find a place that I consider to be home, I'm just going to jump from one page into the next page, like, to be at home there. So in a way, I have 1,000 different homes spread throughout all of these pages. Okay, next fact. I fancy myself something of a hipster, and the more people talk about a book, the less I want to read it. I don't know why this is, and every time that I've resisted a book and then decided to read it, I've always liked it anyway. But I just resist things. Like, I remember being in 2nd grade and everybody talking about how amazing Harry Potter was, and I had not actually read the Harry Potter books, and I was just like, no, I hate them. They're so dumb. They're so cliche, so boring. Like, 2nd grade, guys. I just thought I was so cool because I was different. I did the same thing with Twilight, same thing with Fablehaven, same thing with Brandon Sanderson. But all these books that when I actually read them, I was like, oh, this is why they're talked about, because they're actually genuinely good. So there's a little bit of hipster in me that doesn't want to like things that the general public likes. The general public, as though I'm not part of the general public. I don't want to like things that people love. Like, so I fight that tendency in myself a lot. The next fact about me is maps in books drive me crazy. It's not that I'm not gonna buy a book if it has a map in it, but I just don't like maps in books. Like, I think they're annoying because if you can't explain it well enough that I can't imagine it in my head, then you're not doing your job right as an author. Plus, like, I like it when I can figure out the lay of the land in my head, and to have a map that tells me that I'm wrong. I mean, and it comes back to who's right, the author or the reader. There's an old debate about that. And with maps, for me, the reader. The reader is right. But I know lots of people love maps. I'm not one of them. I would much rather you explain yourself so clearly that I can't misinterpret you, or you allow me to do my thing and make it up. So usually I spend zero time looking at maps in books because I'm just gonna make it up in my head anyway. I don't just take one book with me, I take two. Because I have been in many situations where I have finished my book and then needed another book. So oftentimes, especially if I'm anywhere near the halfway point, I always take two books with me, which when I was going to college, I'd have all my textbooks with me, all my notebooks, and then two books so that I could read on the train. And dang, that backpack was heavy. Like, I had problems with my shoulders for a while because books. Books are a burden. Okay, the next fact is that I don't know what my favorite genre is. I read books based on how interesting I think they are and how much I like the characters, and that will be any genre. Like, there are definitely genres that I am more resistant to, but not necessarily any that I'm more drawn to. It basically is based on my mood. Next, books are not sacred to me, and that doesn't mean that I like stab them with knives, but like that was a hard thunk. I'm sorry, book. I grew up getting books from the library, and ironically, because I'm a hipster, when people tell me, but when books tell me that they're well loved, then I was totally on board with it, right? Like, I knew Harry Potter was a good series because it looks like this. Like, it's all torn up and scuffed and like written in. Like that's how I picked books when I went to the library. It was like, oh, this series clearly is well loved because the books are all torn up. So if a book is all torn up, then I'm like, oh, this is like highly recommended. But for some reason, when people tell me, it comes off as much more abrasive. I'm weird. We'll just accept that and move on. Bookmarks. Next fact. I used to be under the impression that if you needed a bookmark, it was because you were not smart enough to remember where you'd been reading. I came to this conclusion when I was 8 or 9 and had that conclusion until I started high school, and then all of a sudden my brain got so crowded with all the things going on in my life that I could no longer remember what page I had been reading on and needed to like reread multiple pages in order to find where I was. And that got annoying. I think that there are a lot of really cute like designer things for clothing. Like, this was on a piece of clothing that I bought from Ross. So I just keep anything that I think is cute, and that's what I use as a bookmark. So I just have like a collection of like 20 of those, and I use them. Like, so primarily clothing tags are what I use for bookmarks. And that works for me. Anyway, next fact. Hardbacks drive me nuts. I don't know if it's because I have weak hands, possibly, but I think they are annoying to hold open. Like, it's like a work and a force to keep those things open, and I much prefer a paperback. I have always had a goal to read every book that I own. I own like 900 books, and I've maybe read a fourth of them, and this goal is proving very difficult. The next fact is that my favorite place to read is in sunlight. I prefer not to have my book in the sunlight because then I get blinded, but if I can like read with the book in the shadow and the sunlight on the rest of me, I love that. I am a cat. I am a cat first and foremost. In any previous life, I was a cat because I love sitting in the sunshine. My last fact, hopefully I've done my math right, This should be fact number 25. I'm an English major, not a math major, so if it's the wrong number. I read classics very slowly on purpose. The first classic I ever read was The Tale of Two Cities, and I read it in 2 weeks when I was 14, and I don't remember anything, and I missed like the whole point of reading it. One of the reasons classics are classics is because they teach us something about human existence. And if you're not reading it slowly enough to catch what's going on, then you pass through the book, but the book doesn't pass through you, and it doesn't change you or impact you or do any of the things that it's supposed to be doing. So just in general, I've been trying really hard to read a lot slower so that the books are more meaningful to me, and just because there's no value to me in saying that I finished 200 books in a year as opposed to finishing 50 books in a year if I kind of sort of enjoyed those 200 books, but I didn't love them and I can't really remember much of what happened in them, versus those 50 books that I took a lot of time and spent a lot of effort reading and really enjoyed, and I feel like they changed me. Like, I feel like that's a much better experience in my mind than those 200 books that I did get finished. So, okay, that's all I have. Bye.